Is there anything still left in the Denver Nuggets core? Is it time to start asking, is it time to blow it up? Are there players that are on the cutting block more than others? And can Denver really find replacements for these players? We'll get into all of that here on the Mile High Nugget Mine. How's it going, everyone? My name is Alex. I go by 5280 Nugget Mine on Twitter, Mile High Nugget Mine here on YouTube. Look, it's the off season. We're a few weeks removed now from the Nuggets getting bounced from the playoffs and the official announcement of David Adelman as your new head coach. Still waiting on that GM announcement. I have a funny feeling we'll be getting it sometime this week. Just something in my gut screams that Kroenke's either going to pull the trigger and keep Ben Tenzer at the helm moving forward, or who knows, maybe I'm wrong and we're actually a few weeks out from that big announcement. Regardless, the topic at hand today is a very tough one. I think Jamal Murray's name has been one mentioned a lot on social media recently, and it really all boils down to, do we really think that the run back is the correct play for the Denver Nuggets? And if you think that that's not the right play, who are you shipping out of here? Is there anything that you can really get for them that would make your team better? Or is this actually a core that has a lot more left to prove? They just needed someone new at the helm to do it. I'll get right to my answer. I think here, okay, I'm going to do the sports media thing. Yes, there is something still left in this core, but there is conditions that need to be met for that core to, continue to get better. I think that the biggest condition in all of that is health. And the way that you get good health is by, one, maintaining yourselves very well throughout the offseason and throughout the regular season, coming in the right shape and not having to play 20, 30 games before we can say, oh, finally this player's back to the, to the point they were supposed to be at to start the year. Health is big. And then health also comes from you having a good bench unit to alleviate some of your minutes. I think in recent years, you've seen where Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon have to play some nights upwards of 32 plus minutes. And in a regular season, that's a lot of minutes. Ideally, you live in an ideal world. Nikola Jokic only plays 30, like a flat 30. Some nights he only plays 28. But that can almost never happen because your bench doesn't give you those minutes that, allow you to rest the entire fourth or allow you to rest longer stints because they're not going to make mistakes. I think that there is a lot to get from this core if they can get into a postseason healthy. You just haven't seen that since 2022, 2023. And a big reason for that is because they haven't had people backing them up that you can trust. Even in the non-Nikola Jokic minutes, that championship squad, they were still able to pretty much hold water. And also the starting five is also, a plus 15 on most nights. That helped. And you just haven't seen that. And I don't know if this current version of your bench can do that for you. If the run back really is going to happen, you need to take a good look at the people on your bench and see where can they make improvements, where can they continue to develop, and how can we find ways for them to give you way more spot minutes than the 5 to 10 that they give you that end up being disastrous, where they go where they become like -7s, -8s, -15s in their 10-minute stretches. I think that if you look at this core, and I don't know, do we count Christian Braun yet in the core? Is Christian Braun part of the core 5, or are we still saying core 4 looking at, sorry, there's something in my eye. do we still say core four and only look at Nikola, Jamal, Gordon, and MPJ? I almost want to include Christian in that. I just feel like Christian at this point is a player that you probably can't move from just yet, unless, and we'll get into this a little bit later, unless there's a name out there that really thinks Christian is going to help them rebuild and maybe is a good piece to include in any possible trades. Speaking of trades, I am going through, I think Jake Coyne put out an incredible 50 plus page document kind of outlining everything that the Denver Nuggets should be looking to do this offseason. But better yet, it does a good job outlining what is realistic and kind of where the Denver Nuggets are at from an asset standpoint to then be able to do anything. And just from the first couple pages that I've read, you can really tell that the previous regime kind of tied their hands, and it's very difficult this year to do anything. You don't have any picks in this draft, so you can't even move those around to kind of try to entice people. The way that the contracts that you've given out, are kind of shaped makes it even harder to move some of these pieces. Some of the people's contracts are not very team friendly. So now if you want to move that particular piece, you might not be able to do so because no one wants to pick up this really bad contract. It also does a really good job of just kind of giving you the lingo. Here's some of the words you need to know. Here's some of the, buzz things that people are going to be throwing at you that would be very important to understanding what the Denver Nuggets can do. I think it did a really good job at also tempering expectations because, some fans are like, oh, we got to go get Kevin Durant. We got to go get Zion Williamson. Names that I think are probably unrealistic for the Denver Nuggets, and it does a good job at telling you exactly why those names are unrealistic. But I want to get through all of that in its entirety and really have a cohesive video and make sure that I break it down kind of to, the TLDR for the people that don't feel like reading it. Couple of pages in, I should be done with it sometime this week, and hopefully a video comes out pretty shortly after that. But let's keep going into so like I said, the core, there's something left in there 100%. You just have to, so things have to go right for me to think that you can get more out of this core. I think David Adelman is going to maneuver the offense in a way that other players get slightly more opportunities to shine, or just kind of have, wrinkles in the offense that makes it harder for a defense to know what's coming. Being flexible sounds like it's something that's very high on the mind of David Adelman, and I truly appreciate that. And if that really is going to be what you're looking to do, then it can maybe squeeze a little more out of this core that already won you a championship. All right, so let's talk about players that might be on this fabled cutting block. Oh, hi, buddy. One of these days, I'm going to be able to record a video without my cat coming up here and disrupting everything. That day is not today. Okay, let's get right back to what I was talking about. What players are on this fictional fabled cutting block? I'm not going to go for the obvious ones right away. The obvious ones, I've talked about them a couple times here. Well, I'm sure we're all aware of who they are. I want to look more at, let's just talk about Christian Braun. Is Christian Braun someone that's on a cutting block? Is he someone that can be moved? I think the deal has to be, or the player that you're getting back has to be very enticing for you to include him. He is a borderline untouchable player for me. Obviously, Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon also sit in that untouchable category, just players that it wouldn't make sense to move, obviously, because Nikola is Nikola, but Aaron Gordon is someone that I think loves playing alongside Nikola Jokic, and Nikola Jokic, in turn, loves playing with him. So why would you want to break that chemistry apart? There's really no reason to do so. I think you're going to look at someone like, let's just say like a Vlatko Cancar or DeAndre Jordan. You probably look at DeAndre and you go, hey man, how much longer do you plan on playing? Or is this your last contract? How do you feel about moving on? It's just someone that I don't particularly understand what his role would be on here outside of being that veteran. The veteran role has passed. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, those guys are vets in their own right now. So do we really still need an unplayable center to just kind of be the glue guy, or to be the good positive energy or the good positive force on the bench? I don't know if you need that anymore. And if you still need that, then your culture is way worse than you thought it was. And if you ask Josh Kroenke, it wasn't bad enough for a full reset. So clearly things are okay. So why are you still keeping DeAndre Jordan around? I think a better reliable, backup big has to be pretty high on the list of things that you want. Vlatko obviously always gets hurt, and that's no fault. He hasn't had the opportunity to really show, outside of a few stints, how much he can provide for this team. Look, at the end of the day, your best ability is availability, and he has not been that for you. Zeke Najee's pretty, it's a contract that people are going to talk about for a long time with this previous regime, and how difficult it is going to make to move him. I think he's another name that you might want to try to include in a package if you're trying to, bring someone different in. So I'd say, the names that come to mind immediately are probably like Zeke, Vlatko, DJ, as people that I just don't understand what their role on this team is. I'm looking at a depth chart right now. Zeke Najee as a backup center is 5th on the depth chart and 4th if you want to see his name at all on that chart. Just a player that I don't think ever really panned out the way you wanted him to. He shined a couple of times in his first few years, but since then it feels like every time he had an opportunity, he too was getting hurt and just never found a way to change any of that positive momentum into, being a reliable rotational player. And then there is Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. I'm going to start with Mike, because I think between those two players, it is probably easier to move Michael Porter Jr. than it is to move Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray's contract's about to kick in. I don't know how many teams are going to want to eat some of that without maybe making the Denver Nuggets keep some of that on their payroll. Michael Porter Jr.'s contract isn't phenomenal, but it's towards the end of that contract. You have 2-3 years left on that. So it probably is a little easier. And let's be honest, I think the big knock on Michael Porter Jr. for a while is, this guy's never healthy. The past 2 years, he's played 80-plus games. I think he only missed 2 or 3 games this year. Last year, he didn't miss any. If you're worried about health, don't worry about that. He's fine. He can play for you. He's an 80-game player. I mean, not in terms of his production, right? But he will be there for you. And maybe if you're the Denver Nuggets, you can also sell, hey, look, this guy's never really got an opportunity to be a number 1 or a number 2. You guys are rebuilding. Wouldn't you like to have a bona fide champion be your number 2? He's good for 8 to 10 rebounds every night as well. Double-double machine if you give him more minutes. Sure, he's not incredible on defense, but in the right schemes, he actually is pretty big and finds ways to at least impact a shot here and there. And the end of every defensive possession has to be a rebound. Michael Porter Jr. can do that for you. Michael Porter Jr. is on the cutting block solely because of his inconsistency as a shooter. Your role on this team is to space the floor, and the threat of Michael Porter Jr. is good. But in this year's playoffs and in last year's playoffs, the practical use of Michael Porter Jr. probably wasn't what you needed it to be. He only had a couple of games where he, I think, shot above 50%, from 3, which I know is a high mark. I don't know how many times he hit 40. I don't know how many times he hit 35. It feels like I saw him shooting, 1 of 10 more than I saw him shooting 4 of 5. And you really have to ask yourself, is that something that we really want to keep moving forward? You've given him a couple opportunities and he hasn't shown you, that consistent gear that you need. David Adelman spoke about, look, we don't need guys, or we don't want guys that can just hit threes. We want guys that can hit threes when it matters. Michael Porter Jr. has not proven to be one of those guys that hits big shots when it matters. To his credit, there's a couple of shots that come to mind. One of the games against the Lakers last year, wild sequence. You're down 2. Aaron Gordon saves a really bad Nikola Jokic pass, kicks out to Michael Porter Jr., who's open there on the wing, nails a 3. He can hit big shots, but again, those are few and far between. That's the first one that comes to mind, but if you ask me to name like a few more, I don't know if I could get past 3. I'm a big Michael Porter Jr. fan. I love his story. He's someone that should not be playing basketball right now. He's someone that probably should have called it a career after the second back surgery. Not to mention all the stuff that happened with his family. And it's someone that we drafted, we took a chance on, and he proved us right by winning a championship. But good stories moving forward aren't going to cut it. I'm not advocating to move Michael Porter Jr. I'm just saying if a trade, is available and presents itself, and Michael Porter Jr. is one of the pieces that they want, as long as Denver feels good about it, they probably will make the move. And then for Jamal Murray, he's probably very difficult to move just because of how nasty that contract is. But it's not impossible, which is why I would put him on this cutting block. It is hard to move him. But there is a team out there, or a team or two out there, that probably will look at him and say, oh, I mean, that's someone that we could use, a champion point guard, mentally tough guy. He can hit big shots. He can heat up like crazy. Why wouldn't we want someone like that on our team? So there is the possibility to move him. I just think it's a little more difficult. But he is on this cutting block for the exact same reason of just being so inconsistent and coming into almost every single season, save the years that he was hurt, completely out of shape, completely unready to go as soon as the season starts. I'm not saying you have to be, at 100% at training camp, but you need to at least be at 90 so that training camp gets you to 100%. I don't know what percentage Jamal Murray's coming into these things with. I don't even know how hard he's playing or trying at these training camps, the tune-ups. But it doesn't translate. The start of this season, 2024-2025, Nikola Jokic was playing out of his mind. And a lot of us might look at it and say, wow, Nikola Jokic, what a phenomenal player. If you really peel back the layers on that, it wasn't because he was trying to be more aggressive. It's because he was trying to make up for 2 players that were giving him literally nothing in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Nikola Jokic had to go for 30 plus in the first couple of games just to squeak overtime wins against the Titans of the East in the, I think you beat the Toronto Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets in back-to-back games that took overtime when those teams clearly were looking like some of the bottom feeders. And all of that comes from people not being ready to go as soon as the season starts. Jamal Murray has not been consistent. We talk about it all the time. He is phenomenal in his highs. His highs are so unbelievably high, but you almost never see that. You see it here and there. He is the greatest playoff riser in NBA history. Is that really such a high bar to clear when your lows in the regular season are pretty low? I'm not going to take away from the fact that he scores an additional 6 points come the playoffs. That's huge. That's fantastic. Why can't you do that here and there in the regular season? That's what drives us crazy. That's what makes us really wonder, is Jamal Murray the right guy for our starting point guard job moving forward? I'm going to put a small bow on this, trade before I get into more trade talks. Right now I'm throwing a lot of the Denver Nuggets are probably going to move. They're probably going to move him. They're probably going to move him. Let's be realistic. The Denver Nuggets are probably not going to move anybody. The MO for the Cronkies typically is just stand still, don't do anything, lay low, you'll be okay. And hearing that they want to run it back makes me believe that that is probably the case, where you're probably going to get a full run back. Right now, it's the offseason, so we're throwing names out there. But I do think it's important to come out here and, at least talk about how some of these players should be a little afraid that you're going to get moved. Now, the last question that I'm going to pose to myself, and I'll pose to all of you, are we content letting go of 2 players who have pretty high ceilings but unbelievably low floors For players that might just have one of those average ceilings and average floors, where the gap between the floor and the ceiling isn't that much different. Look, Jamal Murray can go for 40. Out of nowhere, just goes for 40. That's the ceiling. But his floor is like a 7 of 28, 7 of 28 night, where he goes for 20 points, gives you like 6 assists, a couple of boards, a couple of turnovers, and you go, oh man, like, he got us 20, but that was an unbelievably inefficient shooting. Michael Porter Jr. is a type of player that is either going 4 of 6 from 3 or 0 of 10 from 3. On a good night, he'll get you 8 boards, 8 to 10 boards, and on a bad night, he'll get you like 5. And as soon as the shot's not falling, he starts to kind of go into this shell of not playing as hard on the defensive side of the ball, an area he already struggles in. If you brought in players that maybe just are consistent, like they probably will never go for 40 for you, but they'll always give you 20, 22. They'll always give you at least border, bottom. The absolute lowest they'll give you is like 6 or 7 boards. They'll go 2 of 4 almost every night from 3. Is that the type of player that Denver wants on this roster? Someone that just is going to be a consistent worker for you, that you never have to worry, oh man, am I actually going to get the effort from this player tonight? Am I actually going to see, the potential that this player has be realized? We've been asking that for 4+ years now, 5+ years now, and the answer continues to be no. If it's the right piece, I would make a move. I'll get into who I think some of those correct pieces are here in a second. It's a hard thing to say because I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. I love this team. I love the way that it came together. I love Jamal Murray. I love Michael Porter Jr. because those are our guys. We didn't go out there and, trade for them, and we sure as hell weren't enticing them to come play in Denver, but we drafted them. They played for us. They grew underneath us. They learned how to become professionals. We watched all of that happen with our own eyes. And that is very special. Very few teams get to feel that. And then to reach the euphoria of getting the first championship for this team, something that I thought literally would never happen in my lifetime, is something that I'll never forget. But we've moved on from the euphoria of winning one and going, Nikola Jokic is too damn good for us to only give him one championship, or give him the opportunity to only win one championship. I'm not advocating for moves. I just wouldn't be bummed if they happened. Okay, let me bring in some players that I think would be really good if you were to make moves. Like I said, I'm going to throw out all the big names. I think a big swing would be a mistake. If I'm being 100% honest, if you swing for the fences, if you swing big for like a Kevin Durant or a Giannis Antetokounmpo, or even, who's the name I'm forgetting here? Giannis, Kevin Durant. There's another name that my brain is just completely blanking on. And even a Zion Williamson. If you made a swing for something like that, I think it would be incorrect. I know that Kevin Durant is an awesome, is a great player, still has a lot left in him, probably like 2-3 more years of excellence left in him, pure shooter. But can you get him to, be available every night that you need him? Can he still provide in the regular season so you're not in the situation the Suns were this year, where you're fighting every single game just to be a play-in team? Giannis is too expensive. The contract probably is the contract for one, and the amount of things you'd have to give up. It's just too much. As much as I love the idea of bringing in Giannis to pair alongside Nikola, give you a legitimate rim protector and someone that the offense or the defense has to just worry about 24/7 when they start moving towards the paint, would be incredible. But I think that's a price that is too steep to pay for where the Nuggets are at. And then Zion, the news that came out for him is some baggage that I don't want in Denver. And I think that also would be a slightly expensive trade that I don't think you want to go into. So those are some of the players that I look at and I go, I understand in theory why someone who just watches basketball casually would say, yes, those are the players we need to go for. Those are the big names that I know, so clearly they would make my team better. I'm going to go with the first name that always comes to mind as soon as trade conversations and trade talks start happening. The one guy I've been screaming for the past 2 years is Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, when he was with the Suns, was young, but you could tell right away he was long, he was a good defender, and he was a great corner shooter. Every time I saw him, spot up in the corner for a three, I just thought it was going to go in, and more often than not, it did. When they moved away from him and sent him over to Brooklyn, I was screaming that, hey, if that's a player that they don't want, that'd be such a good piece coming off of your bench. Well, now he's really proven himself in the past couple of years as a good scorer, as a good defender, as a good three-point shooter. I don't know if his ceiling is particularly high. I don't know if his ceiling's higher than a Michael Porter Jr. A Michael Porter Jr. is just one of those absolute freaks, a Kevin Durant type, or at least he should have been a Kevin Durant type with his height, with his athleticism, and with his three-point shooting ability. So I probably would say that Michael Porter Jr. has a higher ceiling, but the floor for a Cam Johnson to the ceiling is something that I think would really help Denver, because what you lose in Michael Porter Jr. if you were to move him might be a ridiculous burst for 30. But what you gain from a Cam Johnson, somewhere between 15 and 20 points, a good amount of boards, and a stout defender who is very smart. And if you start playing more zone coverages, if you start playing, man-to-man here and there, he's someone that can adapt to all of that and thrive in those situations. Plus, he'd probably get the Nikola Jokic bonus of playing next to Nikola Jokic. I think that's a player that you would be remiss not to go after, especially if his name is available. He's everything that the Denver Nuggets need from that position. So why would you look anywhere else, in my opinion? Good three-point shooter, good length, really good defender. That's what Bruce Brown provided for you, and I think Bruce Brown's a little shorter than Cam Johnson and not as built as Cam Johnson. Just someone that I think would really elevate Denver, and I think would really help moving into the postseason. Because I think you would build enough leads and you would feel comfortable enough to leave people out there to then, propel yourself to a good playoff run. Another name that I've been looking at here and there, and it's one that I did not think was possible. So I'm recording this on Monday the 2nd. I think a day or two ago, the Pelicans said that everyone is available. Well, one of the names that I didn't think was possible, but was like a very high bucket list name, and you'll see a very big trend in the players that I want, or that I'd like to make moves for, Trey Murphy III or Herb Jones are pretty much cut from the same cloth. They are very long, they are athletic, they are good three-point shooters, and most importantly, they can defend almost every position effectively. That's what we need on our side, is someone that can guard 1 through 4 and then 5 here and there without making you feel helpless or make you think, well, that's just an easy an easy bucket because someone's going to blow by Michael Porter Jr. The freak athleticism of a Herb Jones or a Trey Murphy III allows you to kind of run things a little bit differently, where now someone's not just putting Mike in the corner. Now this player, like a Trey Murphy, is setting screens and rolling to the basket, and he's a legitimate threat when he's rolling because he can leap over you. That's a name that I thought was impossible just because I thought that's someone that they'd want to build around. If Trey Murphy is available and they come knocking on your door and they say, hey, you want Trey Murphy? That's cool. You're the odds-on favorite to land him. I don't know how sports books get these odds, by the way. The Denver Nuggets currently sit with the best odds to land Trey Murphy III if they make a move for him. If they come knocking on the door and they say, hey, we want Michael Porter Jr., we want Christian Brown, we want your 2026 or 2027 draft pick. You shake their hand, you say, that's fantastic, here you go. That's just someone that I think completely takes your team to the next level. I think he has a higher ceiling than a Cam Johnson does, and probably a higher floor than Cam Johnson does. I thought that move was impossible a couple hours ago or a couple days ago. I don't think so anymore. I think that if that's something that is truly available out there for you, the Denver Nuggets should find a way to make it happen. I don't really want to get into the Jamal Murray hypotheticals because, like I said, I think it's really hard to move him. I know that the Jake Coyne doc that I was reading has a proposed trade in there that I think would be pretty good. But I haven't really read into it, so I don't want to speak on that without fully knowing what the hell I'm saying. And then like the last name that I think would be an interesting ad for this team, if you're looking for like a veteran guy to come off of your bench, kind of provide some of those minutes that can really propel you from being up 10 to being up 15 to being up 20 to being able to rest the entire fourth. A name that comes to mind is Andrew Wiggins. I think proven champion, phenomenal sixth man, someone that probably still has a lot left in the tank, but probably can't do it from a starting position. But he's someone in Miami. I think Miami's probably going to look to try to reinvent themselves this year. Do you want to keep a veteran player like Andrew Wiggins, or does Andrew Wiggins even want to stay there? If that's something that you can get away, like sending a Zeke Naji and another bench player for Wiggins, I don't know why you don't try. Again, that's not very high on my list, but that's a name that I've also thought about would be a good addition to the bench. I think veteran players off your bench help you win championships, or at least help you be healthy enough to get to a postseason push without feeling drained getting into that postseason push. There's a lot of really good names out there. And like I said a few minutes ago, I don't know if Denver is the type of team that's going to go make those moves, because historically they never have. But if someone comes knocking on your door and they say, hey, we want Michael Porter Jr. for a Cam Johnson or Michael Porter Jr. for a Trey Murphy III, you'd be a fool not to say yes, in my honest opinion. As much as I love Michael Porter Jr., the inconsistency of him and Jamal together is just too much to keep praying that they're going to be the best version of themselves next year or the year after that. All right, we'll wrap things up kind of just by talking about some of the players that are free agents. There's really just one. You guys know who I'm talking about. It's Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown has done a lot to kind of insinuate that he wants to be back in Denver, that he'd almost do anything to be back in Denver. You've already seen what Bruce Brown offers you. He's a great defender. He can, run a couple plays for you. He can bring the ball up when he is on the bench. He can be a playmaker. He's a good three-point shooter. He's one of those players that just does everything for you. And on the Denver Nuggets, with the way that they run their offense, you need more players like that. If you're able to get Bruce Brown on a cheaper contract, if you can sign him for something that isn't going to break the bank, I think that's another move where you'd say you guys are fools if you don't go for it. I don't know what the likelihood of any of this stuff happening is. Like I said, the Denver Nuggets front office have already said that they want to run it back. Without saying it specifically or directly, they said they want to run back. Is that the right decision? We'll get into that maybe in another video as I kind of break down the bench and really ask, is there more to gain from this bench unit? And if so, what does that look like? We'll do that later on in the week. Right now, we're just kind of focused on off-season trades and the core. As I've gone through the video, I've really felt, or as I've gone just talking to myself and in turn talking to you guys, I've really convinced myself that the inconsistency is probably driven me to a point of insanity. I know that people will say, hey, you were one or two bench players away from beating the Thunder and maybe beating the Wolves and being champions again this year. Why wouldn't you run it back? I would say, what's the definition of insanity? And that's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I can't expect Jamal Murray to come in healthier, to come in with a different mindset, to be as close to an 82-game player in the regular season as he can be, because he hasn't proven it and he's had ample opportunities to do so. Michael Porter Jr. has not been a consistent player for so many years now. Why would that all of a sudden change? You gotta have hope. You gotta believe in these guys. You gotta have faith. At some point, faith doesn't cut it. And when there's people out there that can provide for you on a consistent night and may not be able to give you the all-star level play that sometimes Jamal Murray gives you and sometimes Michael Porter Jr. gives you, but what they will give you in turn is a consistent effort, a consistent output. Why wouldn't you want that? That's where I'm at right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe the run back is the right call. Like I said, we'll really break it down in another video. But I just look at those two guys and I think to myself that there's better out there in terms of consistency. Consistency. NBA Finals are starting up soon. Are we shocked by the people that made it into the finals? I don't think so. If anything, it makes me very happy. I know the NBA right now is having a nightmare because it's two very small markets. They're going to be competing against each other, and I can already read the headlines. This year's NBA Finals, worst viewership since, last year or 2 years ago. I don't know if the NBA should really feel horrible for stuff like that. Retention is very odd in people these days, but most importantly, what the NBA needs to take a look at, and maybe this is a conversation for another video, I'm kind of getting off topic. One of the things the NBA should really look at is, man, are we doing a good enough job promoting some of these other market teams that are really good? Or are we focusing too much on promoting, older teams, bigger market teams that probably aren't going to win in the next couple of years? You tell me. How many people know, how many common fans know the Indiana Pacers roster? Can they name the starting five? Can they name Oklahoma City starters? Can they name one or two of their bench players? Probably not. And that's on you for not doing a better job at getting their faces on our TVs. I digress. Let's answer those questions that I posed in the rundown. Again, just to reiterate, is there anything still left in this core? Yes, but there is conditions to be met for this core to be able to be successful again. Which players are on the cutting block? Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. You are being dangled right now in front of other teams, and if someone bites with a really good offer, I don't know why Denver wouldn't do it. And then can Denver find replacements? Absolutely. Cam Johnson, Trey Murphy III, Herb Jones, Andrew Wiggins is a good one. Bruce Brown is also a really good one. There's people out there that can come in and probably provide a more consistent effort than what you have right now. I don't think Denver will make any moves. I'm just saying what I think would be better. Just some random guy in his little room screaming into a microphone. We'll see what happens as the offseason continues to roll on. I will keep providing coverage and my opinions on different things that are going on in the NBA and with the Denver Nuggets. I'm working on getting a couple of Broncos things ready as well as the Denver Broncos get ready. They finished up OTAs last week. I think they have another round of it this week as well. Maybe get a couple of Broncos videos rolling as well. No need to talk about the Rockies. Nothing huge in the Avalanche world yet, but if something big happens, I might actually have a video on that as we continue to try to expand what we do here on the Mile High Nugget Mine. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. You are a real one. I know it's a long time to have to sit and listen to someone ramble, but there's more coming. Thank you so much. I hope I'm getting better at this every time I start screaming into my microphone. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're sharing with your friends because that's the only way that a channel like me could possibly grow. Thank you so much again. This is Alex signing off from the Mile High Nugget Mine.